If you're over 60, there's something you need to hear. Something your doctor may never have told you. Every drink you pour, every sip you take, has a direct effect on the muscle keeping you alive, your heart. And while you may think you're drinking in moderation, some of the most common, harmless habits are silently pushing your cardiovascular system toward failure. In this video, we're uncovering 5 popular alcoholic drinks, ones many seniors enjoy regularly, that are quietly damaging heart rhythm, spiking blood pressure, disrupting sleep, and accelerating aging from the inside out. They don't come with warnings. They don't always cause symptoms. But their impact is real and often irreversible if ignored. If you've ever thought, it's just one glass, this could be the wake-up call your heart has been waiting for. Because the truth isn't in the label, it's in the science. Stay with me. Your heart needs to hear this. Let me ask you something personal. When you pour that glass of red wine at dinner, are you doing it for your heart, or because someone once told you it's good for your heart? Because I've sat across from far too many older adults, smart, active, intentioned people who made that same choice every night without realizing how different their heart is now compared to 20 years ago. Let's be clear. This isn't a lecture. I'm not here to take away your comforts. But as a heart doctor who's seen the inside of aging arteries on scans and heard the stories behind each skipped heartbeat, I need to tell you your body doesn't process alcohol the same way it used to. That one glass of red wine may not be helping your heart anymore. In fact, it might be silently hurting it. You've heard the myth. A glass of red wine a day keeps the heart doctor away. It comes from something called the French paradox, the idea that people in France had low rates of heart disease, despite eating high, fat foods, possibly due to drinking red wine. But that theory is decades old, and newer research has added some important details. The French also walk more, eat smaller portions, and consume fewer processed foods. Wine wasn't magic. It was just one part of a very different lifestyle. Here's what's happening inside your body now. As we age, the liver's enzymatic activity declines, meaning it breaks down alcohol more slowly. A 30-year-old might metabolize one drink in an hour, but at 65 or 70, that same drink could linger in your system for 2 hours or more, exerting more pressure on the heart and nervous system. Alcohol, even in moderate doses, causes vasodilation, widening of blood vessels, followed by vasoconstriction, tightening. This roller coaster impacts blood pressure, heart rhythm, and even your sleep cycles. And speaking of the heart, let's talk about atrial fibrillation, or AFib. It's an irregular heartbeat that increases the risk of stroke by up to 500%. 1 in 4 people over 60 will develop it. And alcohol, yes. Even wine is one of the most common. Overlooked triggers, especially when it's consumed regularly in the evening, when the heart is supposed to be winding down, not battling ethanol. Here's a case I still think about. A 72-year-old man, retired professor, came in for what he thought was anxiety. His heart was racing unpredictably, especially at night. He didn't smoke, ate well, took his medications, but after reviewing his lifestyle, I asked, "Do you drink?" He smiled. "Just one glass of red wine every night, doctor's orders." But it wasn't helping him anymore. His EKG showed a fib. His blood pressure was rising, and his sleep, completely fragmented. You see, alcohol doesn't help you sleep, it helps you fall unconscious. There's a difference. It blocks REM sleep, the phase where your heart rate stabilizes, your body heals, and your brain resets. Without REM, your heart doesn't get the rest it needs. Cortisol, the stress hormone, stays elevated. That puts your cardiovascular system in a constant state of low-grade stress. Let me simplify the physiology. Your heart is a muscle. Muscles need oxygen. rest, and rhythm to stay strong. Alcohol interferes with all three. It reduces oxygenation through disturbed sleep, impairs rest by increasing sympathetic nervous activity, the fight or flight system, and disrupts rhythm by affecting the electrical signals that regulate your heartbeat. And then there's the issue of polypharmacy. Many seniors are on multiple medications: blood pressure pills, statins, diabetes meds. Alcohol can interfere with the way these drugs are absorbed and processed. For example, mixing alcohol with beta blockers can lower your heart rate too much, while interfering with blood thinners like warfarin can increase bleeding risk. These aren't minor interactions, they can be life-threatening. But let's pause here. I don't want you to feel guilt. I want you to feel empowered. Let's turn this into something useful. Ask yourself, do I wake up feeling tired, even after a full night's sleep? Has my doctor ever raised concerns about my blood pressure or heart rhythm? Do I take medication that comes with an alcohol warning I may have ignored? Do I drink wine out of habit, or do I genuinely feel better because of it? If any of those questions stirred something in you, that's a sign, not of failure, but of awareness. And awareness is where healing starts. Let's talk alternatives. The act of holding a glass at the end of the day can be soothing, but what's in that glass matters. Consider tart cherry juice, which contains natural melatonin to improve sleep quality, or hibiscus tea, which has been shown to lower systolic blood pressure by 7 to 10 mmHg in clinical trials. Or even sparkling water with a splash of lemon or pomegranate, which mimics the ritual of wine without any of the strain on your heart. One patient told me she replaced her wine with warm, golden milk turmeric, a bit of ginger, cinnamon, and milk. "It makes me feel cared for," she said. That phrase stuck with me. Because maybe what you really want at night isn't alcohol. Maybe it's comfort. And there are many ways to give yourself that. Your heart has beaten over 2.5 billion times by the age of 70. It has carried you through joy, grief, love, stress, and everything in between. But it's asking for a little help now. Not a dramatic overhaul. Just small, consistent acts of care. If you're someone who's poured a glass of red wine for decades thinking it was helping you, I honor that. You were doing what you believed was right. But science has evolved, and now you can evolve with it. Even if you choose to drink, reducing the frequency to a few nights a week instead of nightly, or drinking earlier in the evening rather than right before bed, can make a difference. Because at this stage of life, your decisions matter more, not less. The margin for error is thinner. But so is the barrier between surviving and thriving. The heart isn't asking you to be perfect. It's asking you to be present, to be mindful, to trade outdated habits for wiser ones. Because it still has many strong years ahead if you give it the chance. But maybe you're thinking, all right, if red wine isn't the best idea anymore, then what about something lighter, something casual, like beer? After all, it doesn't feel as strong. It's not as fancy. It's not swirled in a glass and analyzed for tannins. It's simple, familiar. A cold beer after a long day, a small bottle with dinner, or maybe just while watching the game. It feels easy on the body, like something too mild to do any real harm. But let me walk you through what I've seen, not in textbooks, but in hospital rooms, ERs, and quiet conversations with people just like you. Beer, especially when consumed regularly after the age of 60, is not as harmless as it seems. Let's begin with one of the biggest misconceptions: the word light. Beer is often marketed as low alcohol, low calorie, low impact. But here's a simple truth: light doesn't mean safe. And it certainly doesn't mean healthy. One can of beer contains about 150 calories on average. But those calories are empty meaning they provide energy, but no essential nutrients. They come mostly from refined carbohydrates, which are rapidly turned into glucose and then stored as fat, especially visceral fat, which surrounds your abdominal organs. Visceral fat isn't the kind you pinch. It's the kind you can't see, the kind that wraps around your liver, your pancreas, your intestines, and silently releases inflammatory chemicals like interleukin-6 and TNF-alpha. These chemicals damage the lining of your blood vessels, leading to atherosclerosis, narrowing of arteries, increasing blood pressure, and forcing your heart to work harder than it should. I had a patient, let's call him Joe, 68 years old, retired postal worker, big smile, loved his garden. He came in for fatigue, not tiredness, fatigue, the kind that creeps in, dulls your energy, makes stairs harder, sleep lighter. His vitals, blood pressure elevated, heart rate occasionally irregular, labs showed elevated triglycerides, and his waist circumference had crept up to 42 inches, well beyond the recommended 35 inches for men to reduce heart risk. He didn't drink whiskey, didn't touch wine, just 2 beers a night, only 2. He told me, that's nothing, right? But for his heart, for his age, and for his metabolic profile, it wasn't nothing, it was a slow, burning fuse. Let's talk numbers for a second. According to the American Heart Association, men over 65 should ideally limit alcohol intake to no more than 1 standard drink per day. A standard drink equals 12 Oz of beer. But many craft beers or home pours are 16 to 20 Oz, and with higher alcohol content. That means what you think is 1, maybe more like 1.5 or 2 drinks. Over the course of a week, that adds up, especially when combined with less exercise, slower metabolism, and possible medication interactions. Now, here's something many don't realize. Beer is a diuretic. That means it makes you urinate more, pulling fluid from your body, and often not being replaced with adequate water. Dehydration in seniors is more common than you think, and it's dangerous. Your blood becomes thicker, harder to pump, more prone to clotting. Your heart, especially a heart past 60, doesn't need thicker blood. It needs smooth flow, oxygen, rich circulation, and steady rhythm. Beer disrupts all 3. Even more troubling is what beer quietly replaces in your life. A glass of water with magnesium, skipped. A cup of calming herbal tea, forgotten. That end of day, beer becomes a stand-in for true nourishment, for hydration, for recovery. And for those who think beer helps them relax, yes, it might at first, but physiologically, it's working against you. It stimulates cortisol release later in the night, interfering with deep sleep and contributing to morning anxiety, elevated morning blood pressure, and foggy thinking, symptoms that are often dismissed as just getting older. Let's take a closer look at sleep again. Show alcohol, including beer, disrupts stage 3 and stage 4. Sleep, the phases when the body performs tissue repair, hormone regulation, and immune restoration. Without those phases, your heart doesn't get the nighttime recovery it needs. Imagine your heart like a long-distance runner. If it never gets to rest between sprints, eventually, it breaks down, not all at once, but gradually, silently. Now, think about your medications. If you're on ACE inhibitors, diuretics, statins, or anticoagulants, beer can interact negatively. For instance, beer's dehydrating effect can intensify the effects of diuretics, leading to electrolyte imbalances, such as low potassium, which increases the risk of dangerous heart rhythms. Combine that with irregular sleep, elevated belly fat, and dehydration, and you have a perfect storm. Here's a question I always encourage my patients to ask themselves. If I looked at my heart like I look at my car engine, would I keep putting in something that clogs the filter, overheats the system, and erodes the internal parts? Most laugh. But the analogy sticks. You wouldn't skip oil changes, pour soda into your gas tank, or ignore that strange rattle for months. Yet that's often what we do with our hearts. And for those who say, "But doctor, beer is my only pleasure," I hear you. I truly do. Life isn't just about rules and restrictions. But what if we reframe that pleasure? What if that beer wasn't the reward, but a ritual? And what if we could rebuild that ritual in a way that still brings you peace, flavor, and routine without compromising your health? Let me offer alternatives. Sparkling mineral water with lime and sea salt gives you hydration, trace minerals, and a refreshing taste. Iced rooibos tea has natural antioxidants and a rich flavor, without caffeine or alcohol. Kombucha low, sugar, and pasteurized gives that fizzy satisfaction while supporting gut health. Chilled beetroot juice, rich in nitrates, helps lower blood pressure naturally and supports circulation. One of my patients started mixing a splash of pomegranate juice with soda water in a tall glass, garnished with mint. "It looks like a cocktail," he said, "and tastes like something special." That shift alone, changing his ritual, lowered his blood pressure by 12 points in 6 months. Just from better hydration, better sleep, and less alcohol-induced inflammation. It's not just about taking something away, it's about giving your heart something better. After 60, your body isn't broken. It's just different. It has different needs. And every single beverage you drink either supports your healing or stalls it. So next time you reach for that bottle or can, pause. Ask, is this helping me relax or just numbing me? Is this hydrating my body or taxing my heart? Am I drinking because I'm thirsty, bored, lonely, or just because I always have? You're not stuck in this habit. You're in control. And the beauty of the human body, even after decades, is that it responds to change, sometimes quickly, always meaningfully. One less beer tonight could mean one more morning of clarity, one more walk without fatigue, one more night of restful sleep, because your heart has carried you through every chapter of your life. And now, more than ever, it's asking for something simple, a little less strain, and a little more care. Maybe by now, you've started reconsidering that glass of wine or bottle of beer at the end of the day. You understand that even seemingly harmless habits, especially after 60, can ripple through your cardiovascular system more deeply than you once believed. But what about cocktails? They're festive, colorful, and often come with fond memories of vacations, celebrations, or a peaceful evening on the porch. Surely one margarita, mojito, or whiskey sour now and then doesn't pose a threat. Right, I understand the appeal. Cocktails aren't just drinks, they're experiences. They arrive in delicate glassware, often chilled to perfection, dressed with citrus or cherries, or a little umbrella. They're sweet, gentle on the palate, and often feel more like a treat than alcohol. But here's the hard truth. Cocktails are some of the most deceptive and dangerous drinks for the aging heart. Let me explain why. Unlike wine or beer, cocktails are multi-ingredient concoctions. They often combine hard liquor with sweet syrups, sugary mixers, creams, or soda. A typical cocktail can contain anywhere from 20 to 50 grams of sugar, that's equivalent to 5 to 12 teaspoons. For someone over 60 whose pancreas is likely already less efficient, and whose insulin sensitivity is decreased, that's a serious metabolic burden. I had a patient, Maria, 71, widowed, socially active, who loved hosting Sunday brunch for her friends. Just one cocktail. "Doctor," she said, I make it myself. Orange juice, vodka, some cranberry, and a splash of something sweet. Ugh. When she came in complaining of fatigue, dizziness, and occasional palpitations, we ran the standard tests. Her HbA1c, a measure of long-term blood sugar, was creeping toward diabetic levels. Her triglycerides were high. Her blood pressure spiked unpredictably at night. The surprise: she ate a mostly healthy diet and exercised. But that weekly brunch cocktail was carrying more sugar and alcohol than she realized. Here's why this matters. When you drink a cocktail, the body must process two major disruptors at once: ethanol, alcohol, and glucose, sugar. Sugar spikes your blood sugar, triggering insulin release. Alcohol, meanwhile, suppresses gluconeogenesis, your body's ability to stabilize blood sugar naturally. The result: fluctuating blood sugar levels, leading to fatigue, brain fog, irritability, and over time, increased cardiovascular risk. And if that weren't enough, cocktails often mask the taste of alcohol. That means you drink more, faster. Your body doesn't register the full weight of the alcohol you're consuming. So even if you're not buzzed, your heart is working overtime behind the scenes, fighting inflammation, regulating erratic rhythms, and trying to maintain stable pressure as your blood vessels tighten, expand, then tighten again. Let's go deeper. The liver, your detox organ, processes both sugar and alcohol through similar metabolic pathways. But after 60, your liver's ability to metabolize alcohol slows down by as much as 25 to 30%, and its ability to handle lipogenesis, fat formation from sugar, becomes less efficient. That combination means more fat is stored in the liver itself, leading to what's called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD, a silent epidemic in older adults, worsened by alcohol, sugar combos like those in cocktails. I often say, the damage is cumulative, not instant. One cocktail doesn't break the heart, but one every week, every other day, with mixers full of sugar, consumed on an aging metabolism, combined with medications, poor sleep, or underlying hypertension. That's where the damage builds quietly, steadily, and often invisibly, until it's not. Now, let's touch on something even more subtle: emotional associations. Many seniors associate cocktails with joy, freedom, or identity. This is how I unwind. This is how I connect. This is how I celebrate being alive. I honor that. I truly do. But we must also ask ourselves, is the ritual still serving me, or am I now serving it? Is this moment of sweetness helping my body, or simply helping me avoid something I don't want to feel? Is there another way to reward myself that brings joy without taxing my heart? For those of you managing atrial fibrillation, AFib, or borderline hypertension, cocktails are especially risky. The sugar content causes inflammation in the blood vessels, which triggers oxidative stress. That's when free radicals begin to damage cells in the arterial lining. Meanwhile, the alcohol acts as a central nervous system depressant, disturbing the balance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. That can lead to episodes of irregular heartbeat, shallow sleep, and even night-time blood pressure surges, sometimes unnoticed, until a stroke or heart attack occurs. Let me offer a few simple red flags. Do you feel flushed, dizzy, or heavy in the chest after one or two drinks? Do you wake in the middle of the night with a racing heart after a social event? Have your blood sugar numbers or lipid panel worsened despite a healthy diet? Are you more irritable, anxious, or restless in the morning after drinking? If any of these feel familiar, your cocktail ritual may no longer be compatible with your current health reality. And that's okay. Awareness is power. Now, let's not stop at what to avoid, but let's talk alternatives. One of my favorite replacements for sweet cocktails is a mocktail made with infused watermint, cucumber, lemon, and a splash of unsweetened cranberry juice. It looks elegant, tastes refreshing, and supports hydration and liver function. Another is kombucha. But be mindful. Look for brands with low sugar and no added alcohol. For those wanting a nighttime unwind, try a warm mug of cinnamon, ginger tea, which supports digestion and balances blood sugar, or passion flower and chamomile tea, which naturally reduces blood pressure and calms the nervous system. And don't underestimate the ritual itself. You can still light a candle, pour into a beautiful glass, sit in your favorite chair without compromising your health. You're not giving up joy. You're choosing a new form of it, one that loves your heart back. One of my patients created a routine she called her grace hour at 7 p.m. Instead of pouring a cocktail, she'd make a warm, spiced turmeric milk, open her window, and listen to calming music. "I thought I'd miss the drink," she said. "But what I really missed was the moment. And I kept the moment." That's the key. Your body isn't asking for you to abandon pleasure. It's asking you to upgrade it, to match your rituals with your current needs, to choose nourishment over nostalgia. So the next time someone hands you a cocktail, or you reach for the shaker at home, ask yourself, is this drink worth the strain on my heart tonight? Can I create a new version of this moment, one that strengthens me rather than softens me temporarily? What is my heart asking me for? And how can I respond with love, not habit? Because the sweetest part of any evening isn't what's in your glass. It's the peace you carry into your sleep, the clarity you wake up with, and the strength you preserve for the days ahead. So maybe you've already stepped away from wine. Maybe you've swapped beer for something lighter and let go of the sweet cocktails that once marked your celebrations. But there's still one kind of drink that often lingers quietly. Unchallenged hard liquor, whiskey, vodka, brandy, no mixers, no sugar. Just the strong, simple, pour in a clean glass. It feels more honest, more mature, and often more meaningful. A symbol, perhaps, of who you used to be or who you still want to be. I've met many older adults who drink hard liquor not for pleasure or sweetness, but for ritual and resilience. One finger of whiskey before bed, a sip of brandy after dinner, a quiet drink in silence, not celebration. And compared to sugar, filled cocktails, or bloat-inducing beer, it can seem like the cleaner choice. But if there's one truth that needs to be said clearly, it's this. Your heart after 60 is not built to handle hard liquor the way it used to. Let's begin with the basics. Hard liquor, by definition, contains a higher concentration of ethanol, about 40% alcohol by volume, compared to 12 to 14% in wine or 4 to 6% in beer. That means even a small shot, just 1.5 ounces, delivers a heavy dose of alcohol into your bloodstream quickly. And with age, your body water content decreases and fat stores increase, changing how alcohol is distributed in your body. The result: the same drink that once felt smooth now hits harder, lasts longer, and places a heavier burden on your organs. One of the first places this impact is felt, your cardiovascular system, alcohol, especially in concentrated forms like whiskey or vodka, causes acute vasodilation, temporary widening of blood vessels followed by vasoconstriction. This rapid fluctuation can cause blood pressure spikes, especially dangerous in older adults with arterial stiffness or a history of hypertension. I've had patients tell me, "It's just a nightcap, doctor." But what they didn't realize is that this small sip was quietly pushing their systolic pressure above 150 mmHg during sleep, enough to trigger arrhythmias or even small strokes. Let's talk about arrhythmia for a moment. After 60, the heart's electrical system naturally becomes more sensitive. The sinoatrial node, your natural pacemaker, becomes less efficient. Hard liquor can exacerbate this fragility. It suppresses the vagal tone, the calming branch of your nervous system, and stimulates the sympathetic system, leading to racing heartbeats, skipped beats, and palpitations. And you don't need to feel drunk for this to happen. Sometimes just a small drink in the wrong moment, combined with stress, dehydration, or poor sleep can trigger what doctors call holiday heart syndrome, where even a single episode of alcohol consumption causes sudden onset AFib. And then there's the liver, your tireless filter. After 60, hepatic blood flow can decrease by up to 35%, meaning your liver doesn't clear alcohol as efficiently. In younger years, a drink might be metabolized in an hour. Now, it can take twice as long, during which alcohol circulates through your bloodstream, interfering with glucose regulation, fat metabolism, and drug interactions. Combine this with common medications like statins, beta blockers, or blood thinners, and you've got a complex web of chemical interactions that can lead to anything from increased bleeding to dangerously low heart rates. Let me share a story. A 73-year-old man, let's call him Harold, had been having a quiet whiskey each evening for nearly 20 years. Never more than one. Never with food. It helps me sleep, he said. But in the last year, his blood pressure became erratic. He began waking up with chest tightness. His blood sugar spiked unexpectedly. And during a routine checkup, we found elevated liver enzymes. What was causing it? That nightly drink, combined with his diabetes medication and reduced kidney function. He wasn't drinking excessively. He was simply drinking in a body that had changed, and no one had told him how that mattered. And about sleep, hard liquor might help you fall asleep faster, but it absolutely damages your sleep quality. It disrupts REM cycles, causes sleep apnea, like breathing patterns, and increases nocturnal heart rate variability, which has been directly linked to cardiovascular mortality in older adults. You might wake up at 2 a.m. with a racing heart, a dry mouth, and a sense of unease, and never connect it to the drink you had 5 hours earlier. So ask yourself, is this drink relaxing me, or is it placing an invisible load on my heart while I sleep? Is it helping me process the day, or just delaying the moment I face it? If my body now needs more care, why am I still giving it what it tolerated 30 years ago? Some people argue that hard liquor has no sugar, and therefore must be safer than cocktails. But the absence of sugar doesn't mean absence of risk. In fact, because liquor is absorbed more quickly and in greater concentration, it delivers a more intense blow to your system. And since it's often consumed neat or on the rocks, it's also commonly drunk alone. And solitude can be its own risk. I've met many seniors who drank not to celebrate, but to cope. A quiet drink in the dark to soothe loneliness, grief, or anxiety. But alcohol doesn't soothe, it numbs. And the difference is profound. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. You're also not beyond change. One of my patients once told me, I didn't miss the whiskey. I missed the silence it gave me. And when we explored that together, he discovered guided evening meditations, journaling, and a ritual of warming his hands with herbal tea by the window, all practices that offered peace without taxing his heart. Let's talk alternatives. If you enjoy the ritual of sipping something complex and bold, try warming spiced rooibos tea in a whiskey glass. The earthy, smoky tones can evoke the same calming moment. Add a touch of cinnamon or cardamom for complexity. Or consider Tulsi holy basil tea, which supports adrenal health and reduces blood pressure naturally. For an evening, digestive, steep chamomile and lemon balm, both of which lower cortisol and support heart rate regulation. You're not being asked to give up the memory, the ritual, or the symbol. You're being invited to upgrade the meaning to give your body what it needs now, not what it once tolerated. So tonight, before you pour that quiet drink, pause. Look at the glass. Is this sip honoring your years or echoing an old habit? Does your heart feel supported or silenced? What might change in your life if you replace that pour with presence, breath, and intention? Because your heart, after all, it's carried your griefs, your loves. Your memories isn't asking you for silence. It's asking you for care. And in this stage of life, even the smallest shift can add years of strength, clarity, and peace. And perhaps now, as we've walked through the impact of wine, beer, cocktails, and even those quiet pours of whiskey, you find yourself thinking, but I don't drink to socialize anymore. I don't even drink for taste. I drink and to sleep. You wouldn't be alone, as a doctor. I hear it more than you might imagine. I just need something to take the edge off. It's the only way I can fall asleep. I'm not trying to get drunk, I just want peace. There's something deeply human about the desire for rest. And as we age, sleep becomes more elusive, more precious, and more complex. The same routines that once lulled you into a gentle night's rest now seem insufficient. The silence of the evening becomes heavier. Thoughts get louder. The hours stretch. And for many older adults, the quiet comfort of a nightcap, a small glass of wine, a shot of whiskey, a sweet cocktail becomes not just a habit, but a coping mechanism. At first glance, it seems harmless, even helpful. Alcohol is, after all, a central nervous system depressant. It slows brain activity and promotes drowsiness. It can help you fall asleep faster, which many interpret as better sleep. But here's what most don't realize. The kind of sleep alcohol induces is not restorative. It's fragmented, shallow, and lacking in the REM cycles that the brain and heart rely on to recover overnight. Let me explain what happens physiologically. Your sleep is divided into 4 main stages: light sleep, deep sleep, and 2 stages of REM, rapid eye movement sleep. REM is where memory consolidation happens, where your heart rate stabilizes, where stress hormones lower. But alcohol disrupts REM, sometimes reducing it by as much as 50% in a single night. And the more frequently you drink to sleep, the more consistently you rob yourself of that vital stage. I once had a patient, Linda, 69 years old. She was a retired nurse, practical, smart. She came in not because she drank, but because she was tired, always tired. Despite 8-9 hours in bed, she'd wake up groggy, unfocused, with headaches and anxiety. We ran tests, checked her thyroid, her heart, her labs, all normal. But then I asked, "What's your nighttime routine?" She paused. "Just a glass of wine before bed. Helps me sleep." That glass, we discovered, was the problem. It helped her fall asleep quickly, but after that, her heart rate spiked, her blood pressure fluctuated, and her sleep cycle fragmented, with multiple awakenings that she often didn't even remember. After just 2 weeks of stopping the habit and replacing it with magnesium, rich foods, and guided breathing, she told me, "Doctor, I didn't realize what sleep was supposed to feel like." And that's the truth many don't know. We become so accustomed to poor sleep, we forget what rested really feels like. Let's take a closer look at what alcohol does to your heart overnight. After you fall asleep, your sympathetic nervous system, the one responsible for stress response, should quiet down. Your parasympathetic system should take over, slowing your heart rate, reducing blood pressure, and initiating deep repair. But alcohol keeps your sympathetic system partially active, which means your heart keeps working harder. Your breathing becomes more irregular, and your blood vessels don't get the repair they need. If you wear a smartwatch or fitness tracker, you've probably seen this. People who drink before bed often show increased nighttime heart rate, higher variability, and shorter deep sleep stages. What's concerning is that this happens even with small amounts of alcohol, and the effect is more pronounced in people over 60, whose sleep patterns are already more fragile due to changes in melatonin, cortisol, and circadian rhythm. Now, here's the slippery slope. The more often you use alcohol to fall asleep, the more your brain starts to rely on it. It builds tolerance, meaning you need more over time to get the same effect. And with increased tolerance comes dependency, not always physical, but emotional, behavioral, and neurological. You might start with one drink. Then, over time, it becomes two. Then maybe you feel restless without it. Then you notice your sleep isn't as good, but you don't connect it to the alcohol. So you drink earlier or more. And all the while, your heart is carrying the burden silently. Reflect for a moment. When did your nightly drink become a necessity, rather than a choice? Are you falling asleep or just passing out? Do you wake rested or just relieved the night is over? We often blame age for the restlessness, the fatigue, the 3 a.m. wake-ups. But sometimes, the cause isn't teenage. It's the choices we've carried with us from a different time, into a body that no longer benefits from them. Now let's talk about alternatives, because this isn't just about stopping something. It's about giving your body the tools it actually needs. First, consider sleep nutrition. Foods rich in magnesium like pumpkin seeds, almonds, dark leafy greens help relax the nervous system. Tryptophan, found in turkey and oats, supports serotonin and melatonin production. Even a small banana with almond butter before bed can calm the brain naturally. Second, ritual matters. Your brain craves pattern. Instead of pouring a drink, create a sleep ritual. Dim the lights an hour before bed. Drink a warm tea, chamomile, lemon balm, or passion flower. Listen to calming music or a guided meditation. Try 4-7-8 breathing. Inhale, 4 seconds. Hold 7. Exhale, 8. It lowers heart rate and promotes relaxation. Some of my patients write down their thoughts before sleep in what we call a worry journal, to release the mind from cycling through the same loops. Others replace alcohol with tart cherry juice, which naturally contains melatonin and helps regulate the body's internal clock. One 74-year-old man told me he started walking barefoot in his garden at sunset instead of sipping his bourbon. I needed grounding. He said, I thought I needed sleep, but really, I needed peace. That struck me deeply, because for so many, the drink at night isn't about sleep, it's about searching for peace. But peace doesn't come in a bottle. It comes in presence, in rituals that heal rather than numb. So tonight, before you reach for the glass, ask, is this the rest my heart truly needs? Is this helping me recover, or just helping me forget? What would it feel like to wake up tomorrow truly rested, not medicated, not fogged, but clear and alive? Because you deserve that kind of rest, the kind that restores, the kind that supports your heart, your brain, and your body fully. You've carried so much in this life, and your heart has shown up for you through it all. Now is the time to return the favor, not by escaping the night, but by learning to embrace it with gentleness and care. By now, you've seen how that one quiet glass at night, whether for relaxation, routine, or sleep, can begin to alter your body in ways you might not even feel. But here's the part that unsettles me most as a doctor. It's not just about what alcohol does when it shows up loudly in racing hearts, poor sleep, or morning fatigue. The greatest danger, especially for those over 60, is what alcohol does silently, without warning, without obvious symptoms, without pain. It's what I call the slow erosion of vitality. You may not feel anything at first. No dizziness, no chest pain, no shortness of breath. You're still going for walks, cooking your meals, laughing with friends. Everything seems fine. And yet beneath the surface, your heart, your liver, your blood vessels may be quietly deteriorating. Let me tell you what I've witnessed too many times to ignore. An older adult walks into my office, upbeat and sharp. Their smile is strong, their posture confident. Maybe they've even brought in a notebook of blood pressure readings, showing mostly normal results. But something nudges them an unusual sense of fatigue. Perhaps. Or occasional heart palpitations. We run the tests. Echocardiogram shows early signs of left ventricular hypertrophy. The heart muscle is thickening from years of subtle strain. Lipid panel reveals triglycerides far above normal. Even though their diet seems clean, liver enzymes are elevated early, stage fatty liver. Though they've never had a problem before. And sometimes, on an ambulatory heart monitor, we pick up silent episodes of atrial fibrillation that they never felt. I've seen this scenario play out in men and women who drink only socially, who never get drunk, who pride themselves on moderation. That's the trap. They believe that because they're not binging, they're not at risk. But the body doesn't process intent, it processes impact. And here's where it gets even more serious. After 60, your body's warning signals become muted. Your pain receptors, your adrenal responses, and even your nervous system don't respond as dramatically as they used to. What once might have caused pounding in the chest or lightheadedness, now might present as slight tiredness. Or nothing at all, you might say. But I feel fine. And I'd say, that's exactly why we need to talk. Because cardiovascular disease, the #1 killer of adults over 60, doesn't begin with a heart attack. It begins with decades of quiet inflammation, microvascular damage, and oxidative stress, often worsened by seemingly normal habits like a daily drink. Let's break this down simply. Alcohol, even in small, repeated amounts, leads to endothelial dysfunction. The lining of your blood vessels becomes less elastic, impairing circulation. Increased triglycerides and LDL cholesterol, which leads to silent plaque buildup in your arteries. Elevated homocysteine levels, an amino acid linked to arterial stiffness and clotting risk. And mitochondrial stress, weakening your body's ability to produce energy efficiently. And most importantly, it elevates systemic inflammation markers like C-reactive protein CRP, a clear predictor of future heart events. But none of this shows up on the surface until one day. It does. I remember clearly a man in his early 70s, Jim, retired contractor. Strong, lively, took care of his grandkids on weekends. He came in for a routine visit, insisted he had no health issues. But his blood pressure had gradually increased over the past 2 years, and he'd begun relying on 1 glass of bourbon each evening to help him sleep. We ran a coronary calcium scan, a simple, non-invasive test. The results stunned him. A score of 480, severe plaque burden. He had no idea. He felt healthy, no chest pain, no fatigue. But his arteries were telling a different story. That's the silent part. That's the frightening part. Because damage doesn't always announce itself. It accumulates, day by day, glass by glass, until your heart can no longer adapt. And let's not forget about the brain. Alcohol affects your cognitive health, too. After 60, your brain becomes more vulnerable to neuroinflammation. Regular alcohol intake, especially in the evening, can impair memory consolidation, weaken mental clarity, and accelerate brain shrinkage in regions tied to memory and executive function. You may chalk it up to just aging. But what if part of it is reversible? So here's the tough but necessary question. What if feeling fine isn't the same as being healthy? What if your current baseline is just what you've gotten used to, but not what your body truly needs? And how much better could you feel if you removed the very thing quietly weighing you down? One of the greatest myths I hear is everything in moderation. And while that's a comforting idea, moderation becomes a moving target as we age. What was moderate at 40 may be too much at 65. What was once resilience is now vulnerability. Not weakness, but a shift in biological needs. The good news: the body, even at 60, 70, 80, is still capable of healing. Studies have shown that within 30 days of stopping alcohol, liver enzyme levels begin to normalize. Blood pressure drops by an average of 5 to 10 mmHg. Sleep architecture improves, with more REM and deep sleep. Triglycerides reduce by up to 25%. Mental clarity increases. Heart rate variability stabilizes. It doesn't take years. It just takes intention. And no, it doesn't require perfection. Even reducing your intake by half can create noticeable improvements in your energy, mood, blood pressure, and focus. But it starts with one thing: awareness. I encourage my patients to track not just what they drink, but why they drink. Are they thirsty, anxious, lonely? Is it out of habit or fear of sleep or a placeholder for something deeper? Because once you understand the why, you can begin to change the how. I've seen patients turn their lives around with one simple shift, replacing their nightly drink with a calming tea, a breathing ritual, a short walk at dusk. One woman started ending her nights by sitting under the stars with her dog instead of pouring a glass. It was never the drink, she told me. It was the pause I needed. So let me ask you now, is your silence with the glass truly restful? Or is it a quiet erosion? What's happening beneath the surface of your health that you've never questioned? And if you were to make one change tonight, not tomorrow, not next week, but tonight, what would it be? Because the most dangerous damage is not the one that hurts, it's the one that doesn't. Until it does. And your body, your heart, your mind, they're not asking for miracles. They're simply asking for a moment of truth, a moment to be heard, a moment to start healing from the inside out. The greatest threat to your heart isn't always loud. It doesn't always arrive with sirens or symptoms. Sometimes it's silent. It builds quietly, one nightly drink at a time, one disrupted sleep, one missed warning. And by the time you notice, the damage may already be done. That's what makes it so dangerous. Because feeling fine is not the same as being healthy. If you're over 60, your body is speaking to you differently now. It doesn't need sedation, it needs support. It doesn't want routine, it wants repair. This isn't about guilt or deprivation. It's about giving yourself the chance to feel better, live longer, and stay strong. The smallest change, starting tonight, could be the one that protects you from the consequence that never warns you before it strikes. Don't wait for a symptom to prove this truth. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more science-backed ways to stay strong and live well.